All right, we're going to work on the machine sewn hem. For this one, you need your 5x5 square, not the rectangles. You also need a seam gauge, which is this piece of equipment right here, and you also need a few pins, so just bring over a pin cushion. It's easiest to start at the iron for this one, so that's why I'm at the ironing board right now. For the first step, it says to use a seam gauge, fold one edge of the square toward the middle of the square at 1/2 inch and press. The wrong sides of the fabric should be touching. So again, when I look at my square, here I have the right side and the wrong side. So it says to take an edge, and it doesn't matter which one because it's square, and fold it at 1/2 inch toward the wrong side. Now in sewing, you can't just fold it and guess. You have to be accurate or things aren't going to be the way they need to be at the end. So I'm going to take my seam gauge and I'm going to slide the slider over until it gets to the 1/2 inch line. Now the edge of the seam gauge to the slider will give me an accurate measurement. So when I place this on the ironing board, I'm going to take one edge and I'm going to fold it down, and right now I'm just kind of guessing, but then I'm going to use my seam gauge to actually measure it. So I've got my seam gauge set at 1/2 inch. So from side to side, that should be a 1/2 inch. I need to move it over a little bit. All right, there we go, 1/2 inch. Take the iron and very carefully press that edge in place. And I recommend using a little bit of steam here so that it really holds it down. All right, we're ready to move on to the next step. It says using a seam gauge, fold the same edge toward the middle again, but this time at 1 inch. So I keep this original fold, keep it folded, but take my seam gauge, slide it over to 1 inch this time, and fold it again. So now I take this edge, this one's going to be a bigger fold, and then I measure from side to side, 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, and then I can press this in place. And use some steam to really hold it down. All right, step 3 says pin the fold down with straight pins. And if you look at the picture down here, it will show you kind of the even spacing of the pins when you get there. So I've got some pins here. And the trick to pinning is to pin it flat. You don't just stick it through and call it good, because then the sharp part is sticking out the back. You pin it in, but then you also swing it back up and lay it flat. So there's my first pin. I recommend you do about 3 of them, one at the top, one in the middle, one at the bottom. So again, we're going to go down and then up so that it lays nice and flat. Let's do one more. We're going to go down and up. So there's my sample now. I've got 3 pins. Now I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and I'm going to sew this fold down at 1/8 of an inch. All right, for the next step on our machine sewn hem, we're ready to actually sew it down. Now that we've got it all pressed and pinned and in place, I recommend that you probably keep a pin cushion next to your machine, so when you're taking out your pins, you can just put them right in there and they don't get all under the machine or on the floor or anywhere else. So here I have my sample. Remember, everything's pressed. We've got some pins going through. It says to sew a 1/8 of an inch seam down the fold closest to the center of the sample. So that's this folded edge right here. 1/8 of an inch is the inside edge of the presser foot. So it's going to be a very, very small seam, and it's going to follow this fold right here down the center of your seam. So when I place this in, I'm going to lower the presser foot so that the inside edge of the foot follows the fold. Now, because we're working with pins this time, it is really important that you stop, take the pin out, and then continue on when you get to a pin. Do not sew over the pins. So I'm going to twist the hand wheel. The needle's going to go in. I'm going to pull the thread to the back, and I'm going to just do a straight stitch. All we're doing is following the inside edge. So I go forward, I back stitch to the edge, and I'm going to get up to a pin, and I'm going to stop sewing. I'm going to take the pin out, place it right into my pin cushion, and I'm going to continue forward doing just a straight line all the way down. When I get to a pin, I stop, take it out, put it in the pin cushion, and continue on down that edge. It's a very simple straight seam. We're just following a different line on our stitch plate. Remember to take the pin out, and when you get to the edge, remember to back stitch a few stitches And then we can take it out, lift the presser foot, trim our threads. Remember, we want to get the threads into the garbage eventually, so make sure they don't just go all over the floor. So as you can see, we'll trim that little guy, maybe. As you can see now, we have sewn down our hem here, but it's very close to the edge at 1/8 of an inch. And that one's done. You can staple it in. I want you to staple it with this side up so that I can grade it. When you get ready to staple in your machine sewn hem, make sure that the top part of your sample, the wrong side, is showing, but that the edges that we folded are right side up, right here. And then all you have to do is staple the top edges like so, so that I can look at both sides.